It's going to be part 2 of explaining, what inspectors do as a full job description. So in the last video, we just finished up with the going over all of the parts inside of the engine bay that we go over in our normal inspections. So now we're gonna move on to the interior of what we typically tend to check. So for starters, first things we like to check in the inspection videos is the seat. We want to make we want to verbally say, what the material is, whether it's leather or upholstery. We want to say what color it is as well. If there's multiple colors, we want to make sure to mention all the colors and all of the different material types. We want to make sure to say what kind of chair it is, whether or not it is powered or manual. We want to make sure to note whether or not the seatbelt functions, as well as note any extreme cases of mold that grows on these seatbelts, because we've had numerous seatbelts come back from customers that don't want them because they're covered in mold. So we want to make sure to make a note of that. If there's any mold, we mention it in the video. The next thing we're going to do in the video is, in our normal inspection video, is check the door panels. It's going to be a very similar story to the seats. We're going to check for what material and what color. So on this one, it's black plastic, black leather, and then up here we have a dark brown wood grain. So we want to make sure to mention all three of those in the inspection video. After that, we want to not forget about the master switches right here, making a note of any wear and tear. Sometimes the little paint chips off the edge of these after so many years, and we want to make sure to mention that in the video. After that, we want to make a note of whether or not the steering wheel airbag has deployed, whether or not any of the paint or chrome is chipping or cracking, or any of the leather is chipping. We want to then mention any damage we see or the condition of the buttons on the steering wheel. So like right here, this is a great example. So I would mention that as minor wear and tear. Some of the paint is beginning to chip. If you can easily explain what button it is, do that, but it's just a plus button. But there's two plus buttons, so say for example it was the mode, I would say the mode button is chipping, but because it's such a random button, I wouldn't bother. I would just I would say one of the buttons is chipping and cracking and the paint is peeling off. After that, we want to check the actual steering wheel itself. Make a note of whether or not any of the stitching is beginning to become undone, or if any of the leather is cracking, or if there's just any major wear and tear going on the actual wheel itself. Now this one's pretty good, so I can't really show you any damage on it that we typically tend to look for. But after that, we want to make sure to check the turn signal switch, the wiper switch, make sure they both function. We want to check the speedometer, make sure there's no major cracks or scratches. Making sure not to forget about these little buttons and dials to the left of the steering wheel. And then in a typical car, we would check for the control panel as well, which is usually located right there. I mean, you know where a control panel is. Making sure to note, just like the rest of the buttons we've gone over so far, whether or not there's any wear and tear or any paint chipping, or in case of any rubber dials, if any of the rubber is cut or scratched. We also want to, if there's any if there's say two parts of the control panel, we want to make sure to mention both the AC controls and the media controls. Sometimes on newer vehicles, those are on two separate panels. So we want to make sure to specifically mention that both panels are good, noting each individual panel if it has damage. We also want to check for the info screens, the media screens, the little touch screens that are in modern vehicles. Just like the speedometer, we're going to check for any major scratches or cuts, and make sure to note that in the video. After that, we want to check the shifter. So this is actually a great example. The P on the little parking brake button, or just parking button rather, on the top. Some of the paint is actually chipping off that on the inside and on the lower section. So we would want to make sure to note that in the video, as well as this cracking in the little clear coat plastic that you see there. We want to make sure to note that in the video. Now, a common issue we tend to run into here is on some vehicles, all of these letterings are sometimes on the side, and there's a little plastic piece up here that's removable, and I would say a good half the time that little plastic piece is removable, it's gone. So we want to make sure to note in the video if any pieces of that are missing. So you're gonna want to keep an eye out for any pieces that are flat out missing on the shifter specifically, because there is a piece sometimes located right here that can pop off. We want to make sure to note absolutely everything we see. So that includes this as well. We'll make a note of the paint chipping off the top. Any damage to the buttons, make sure the dial still spins. We want to make a note of the rear view mirror on the inside of the vehicle. We want to mention what color it is, what material it is. Sometimes it's leather, most of the time it's plastic. Most of the time it's black, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's tan. If possible, in the video, in the actual inspection video, we want to record, get a little nice close-up of the numbers, the little serial numbers on the back. So, in a normal situation, it'd be mounted to the window. So we would just want to kind of squeeze our phone back there and make sure to get those, if possible, in the video. Mentioning in the video whether or not the rear view mirror is powered, so this one's powered, or manual. It's got that little flip on the bottom. We want to make sure to note in the video which kind it is. Some of the other things we want to check in the front seat in the video is the center consoles, both on the roof and in between the seats. So if there is no center console on the roof, we want to make sure to mention that in the video. We also want to mention whether or not the buttons and lights on the roof are functional. So in this case, they are not. They are very much damaged. So we're going to make sure to mention that in the video. And with the center console between the seats, we want to mention what material it is as well, and what color it is. With the center console on the roof, we just want to mention what color it is. 99 times out of 100, it's just going to be plastic. But we want to mention what color it is, whether or not it's tan or gray or black. And with the center console between the seats, we want to mention what material it is, because sometimes it's leather. So this one's actually leather. So in this case, I would say, the center console between the seats is black leather. It is functional, and it is in good condition. I'm not seeing any major damage. All pieces are accounted for, And after that, we just want to check the dash. In this case, it's pretty clear that the dash is going to be in, pretty rough shape. The glass has been laying on it for a couple of weeks now. And, it's not the most still thing in the world. So, yeah, there's quite a few cuts and scrapes underneath that glass. So we want to mention that in the video, just like most other things I've mentioned on the interior. We want to mention the material. So in this case it's leather. We want to mention the color. In this case it's black. We also want to mention whether or not the dash airbag has deployed. And that goes for every airbag in the entire vehicle. We want to verbally say whether or not the airbag has deployed or not. We also want to check the glove box. Once again, mentioning the color and material, whether or not there's any deep cuts or scratches. Another thing we want to look out for is the headliner. We want to mention the color, and we want to mention whether or not the roof airbags have deployed. We want to check the sunroof. We want to mention whether or not it is powered, like in this case, or whether or not it is manual. We want to mention the color of the inner liner, and if it's manual and we can slide it back, we want to slide it back and check the glass. In this case, it's electric, so instead what we're going to do is we're going to jump up top, and we're just going to make a quick visual inspection of the top. There doesn't appear to be any major damage, no major cracks. So in the video, we're going to say that's okay. And we're going to mention that the roof is tan. The sunroof is also tan. After that, we're going to go around the entire vehicle, checking all the rest of the door panels, mentioning the color, material, and the condition of all door panels. In the back seats, we're also going to check the seat belts. One thing I did forget to mention as well, oh my goodness. One thing I did forget to mention is we also want to check, oh my gosh. Hold on. Okay, one thing I did forget to mention is we want to make sure to make a note of all headrests inside the vehicle. What material, what color they are, whether they are manual or powered, whether or not they are removable or not. So I just checked this one, and what I would say in this case is it is black leather, manual, not removable, but in good condition. So you just want to make a full visual inspection of the entire headrest and mention everything you see. Now, one thing to note with some door panels, specifically the ones in the back of SUVs and minivans, some of them have this little shade screen, and you would just want to pull it up real quick and make sure that there's no major cuts, scratches, or any rips in the netting. A lot of the times they'll have like some folds in it. You don't really need to mention that, because that can kind of be, that can kind of be fixed. You just want to make a note of any major damage you see on these screens. You just want to also make sure to check these little hooks on the top. Sometimes they'll be broken. Now with the back seats, just like the front seat, we want to make a note of the color, the material. We want to check all seat belts. We want to check all headrests, mentioning whether or not they are manual, removable, and what color and material they are. In the back seats, we want to check the overhead lights as well, making sure that they are not damaged and the glass is not cracked. While you're in the back seat, you're also going to want to check the back side of the center console between the seats. Make sure that there's no major damage to the AC buttons, if there are any, or the fins, if there are any. After that, we're just going to make our way around. Now, as you might have been able to tell, there's quite a few more items in the trunk than when I started this video. All the loose bits that the dismantlers remove from the vehicles, they put in the back of the vehicles. We kind of use these vehicles as storage units on our lot. So it keeps all the parts clean and mostly out of the dust and dirt. So we want to make sure to capture all of these parts on video. Air cleaner box, we want to make sure all of the clips and brackets are intact. We want to make sure that there's no major damage to the plastic. And it's the same story with the engine covers. We want to make sure that there's no major scratches on the front, because that's what people are going to be seeing. We want to make sure all the clips and brackets are intact on the bottom. That way it can actually mount to the engine. Some of the more common items that we put in the trunk area as well are the front axles, the alternator, AC compressor, starter. I'm not seeing it in here, but the throttle body as well. The transfer case is also back here. When we do remove them from the engines, we do tend to keep the intake manifolds in the trunk area as well. And they did actually remove the fuel injectors for this vehicle. Okay, after checking all items in the trunk, we want to continue moving around the vehicle. I have located that control panel, so we're just going to make sure to note all damage we see on it, check the dials for any cuts and stuff. Continuing to check all seats, mentioning materials and color, checking all seat belts for mold and function. Continuing to check all door panels for color and material. See, this is exactly what I was talking about. There is a damaged hook right there. The hook is gone. So there's only one hook. So we're going to want to make sure to mention that in the video. Continuing to move on, we're going to get to the front passenger side. And we're going to do the same thing that we did for the other, for the driver's side. We're going to make sure to mention the color and material of the seat, mention whether or not it is powered or manual, check the seat belt, check the headrest. If we couldn't reach it earlier, this is when we would check the glove box and the dash. Still checking the door panels for all damage, cuts, or scrapes, mentioning the material and color. And checking the visors as well, mentioning the color, material, and making sure to check the inner mirror if there is one, because when it's closed like that, you can't see that sometimes these mirrors are cracked and damaged. After that, we're going to go over everything underneath the vehicle. I'm not going to lift it up right now because I've got a coworker working in the trunk area, but some of the things that we want to note in our inspection videos are the spindle. Specifically just this inner ring right here. This outer piece is trash. We don't guarantee these. We typically tend to take them off before we give them to the customer, but they give it a little more rigidity, so they typically tend to stay on until they get into the van to drive to the customers. Anyway, we then want to check all control arms for the vehicle, upper, lower, trailing, everything we can see. Checking the suspension spring and the shock. And now this is a great example of what kind of damage we want to look for. This dust cover, that's what this little piece is called right here, is very much damaged, and we're going to want to make sure to note that in the video. We then want to check the rear K-frame if there is one, which I believe, yep, there is. We'll want to check the rear K-frame for any major damage or corrosion. Now some of those bolts are a little bit corroded, but they're not too bad. It's not really the kind of corrosion we're looking for. Honestly, this is kind of the corrosion we're looking for. Serious rust flakes, and when you rub your finger on it, your fingers turn orange. So we want to check the rear K-frame. We're going to check the muffler, checking for any major damage or corrosion. While we're under the vehicle, we're also going to check the rear bumper reinforcement if it's visible. Sometimes there's a splash guard in the way and we can't see it. After I do the right rear spindle, I typically go to the left rear spindle just to get the entire rear of the vehicle out of the way. Checking everything that we just went over one more time, but on this wheel. Front spindle, shock and suspension, dust cover, all control arms. We're also going to want to check this little rear stabilizing bar. Now, we don't guarantee the condition of these endlings, which are the piece from the main stabilizing bar that connects to the actual spindle or sometimes control arms. We don't guarantee this section right here. We don't. So this bushing isn't really all that important. But if it's, severely damaged, we do want to make a note just so the customer's aware. That bushing you see right there, I wish I had my flashlight on me, but this bushing right here is specific